Hello, and welcome to our weekly episode of the Roll Wise podcast. I'm Mike, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my two super friends.
I'm Brent. Hi, guys.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And we are here to discuss some recent events, some updates, and kind of talk about some discussion points. So tonight, we wanted to say thank you. We've just reached 25 subscribers, and that's kind of our first milestone. Not that we're counting or anything like that, but we do watch every day, multiple times a day, to see if we hit these milestones. That's not obsessive at all. I know it isn't.
And no pressure on anybody that's listening.
Yeah, no pressure for anybody else. But needless to say, if you like what we do, go ahead, like, subscribe. Let us know what you enjoy about the content, and of course, leave comments on any of our videos. YouTube is actually really easy to see the most recent comments, so we can say hi. And we are definitely not so famous that we're getting so many contents that we can't at least respond to a few of them.
Or famous at all.
You could have just said we're definitely not famous and left
Yeah,
the rest of that out.
Definitely not internet famous
the
in
editor
the
should
slightest.
insert a period there. Just
We are just really not famous in any sense.
In fact, we are probably in some corner of the internet, so small. No, I was kidding, but not for long.
In every corner of the internet, we're pretty small, I think. But
hey,
we're trying.
That's okay. We're going to continue on. We hope that you guys like what we do. And just as a quick plug, we are playing games on Mondays. So if you want to watch some people play games terribly, that should have really been the channel. Friends who play games terribly. We do Mondays.
Terribly.
Oh, okay, well, I run them.
Stick to the plot.
Playing games terribly with these guys.
Yes, that's our Monday nights. We have fun. They are at 8:30 p.m. Pacific. So if you want to drop by, or if you want to catch our live streams, we make playlists for all the systems that we're playing. And as you may guess, since we're a relatively new podcast, we don't have a long library of actual plays. But if you want to hear what we do, if you want to see how maybe a non-mainstream game goes, we're starting to get a small library built, and we hope to continue to play smaller press games, independent games, random games. So if you happen to be somebody who's put out a game and you want us to play it for whatever reason, because we would love to play it, we'll give it a try. Monday nights, 8:30 p.m. Pacific.
And we just basically like to play games that maybe other people you don't see very often. Mm-hmm. That's really what we focus on.
So yeah, so we're not doing this for the views. We're doing this for the fun. But if we happen to get views, we appreciate it. We appreciate you stopping by.
Kind of the views too. We do appreciate the views.
Yeah, we got to feed the algorithm something. But needless to say, Jeff had mentioned it was actually funny because there was a period in our short podcasting career where we did do a little bit of ragging on Wizards of the Coast and everything like that. It might have been a slight dragging through the gravel that we did on some episodes.
A little.
And maybe needless to say that Brent still has a grudge, something that some hatchet he has yet to bury.
Hey, I bought one of their books recently, so yep.
So does it still count as you buying one of their books if it was through eBay?
I think it does. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it is one of their books, yes, but they don't get extra money when it gets sold the second time.
That's true. Perhaps.
But which book was it?
It was the new Dragonlance book, Queen, mm-hmm. Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. And the reason why Shadow of the Dragon Queen, because I did purchase it myself. I actually paid full price for it. I reserved it at my local game store, and I walked away with it.
You bought the collector's version.
I did. I bought the collector's version because the artwork on the collector's version is just chef's kiss. It's so good. I love it. I love that cover. I love the faux metal that it has going on. Oh God.
And is all the Dragonlance stuff, is that all set in Kryn?
Yeah.
Yes. Kryn is the world.
I'm just double checking my brain.
Yeah, no, it's entirely Kryn. But that's okay. I mean, we haven't played Shadows of the Dragon Queen. I think that would be a fun campaign to play through. But it's got they put a lot of moving parts into it. And I think it was fairly well received based on what I remember. I mean, I haven't really looked at
I recently was listening to a real play of the game, and it made me kind of nostalgic, I will admit.
Yeah,
sure.
So needless to say, if there is enough interest and people want us to play through the campaign, we'd be happy to do that. You just have to tell us, like, subscribe, and comment a lot on this video that says play that, and then I can read through the book and put these guys through the paces. Or we might even be able to bring other people in. Who knows? But needless to say,
if we don't get any feedback, we're just going to keep picking small games from small publishers that the three of us are interested in.
Well, and we might, and honestly, we might do it anyways, even if somebody doesn't say it. But you know, it's
we might.
Yeah. So. But the reason why we brought up that is because D&D had its, you could price increase because everything has been raising the prices, and without getting too much.
Paizo had their price increase.
Well, D&D had a price increase too.
Oh yeah, that was a while ago, though.
Everybody on the planet ragged on Dungeons and Dragons for mentioning.
They did. I couldn't go onto YouTube without seeing it. This is creators.
I mean, they deserve it.
You got to make the content that you think are going to get the views. I get that. But I couldn't go on YouTube when Wizards did the price increase and not see a video in my feed just pillaging Wizards of the Coast. But they're not the only publishers doing it. Like Paizo had announced a price increase last week, and not everybody's handling their price increases the same way. But I didn't see any news until I was actually looking at N-World and looking through their news right there. I hadn't heard about Paizo's price increase. I'm not surprised. The businesses are getting slaughtered. Publishers are getting slaughtered. All of their costs are going up, and the prices are still reflecting costs from 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. Right?
And obviously they're not participating in the AI smorgasbord, so they've got to still pay real people. And I'm willing to, if a company is going to take a stand against using any sort of AI tools to generate content, then I'll pay them for the staff, because I feel like that's the necessary trade-off you have to make. Is that you could, and I think Amazon saw the deluge of just people are like, oh, I can get AI to write novels, and then fucking like novels that are just absolute garbage.
No, they got flooded. They got flooded with garbage.
And
it was
poorly
trash.
written, poorly edited, poor storylines. And I mean, and the novelty of AI definitely wore off by chapter 3, let's say. And I don't know if I fell victim to any of these. I don't tend to buy a ton of non-audio books, but I'm sure that people that pick those up are like, what the fuck am I actually reading? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I wanted to talk about this, and we're probably almost done. It was the sheer, what felt to me like hypocrisy. Like, I think all of the publishers are going to wind up raising the price of most role-playing books. But the fact that everybody pointed out when Hasbro Wizards of the Coast did it, and nobody really mentioned it, that I saw when Paizo did it. They do have a nice blog post that explains it on their website. I don't fault them in any way. This isn't in any way negative about Paizo. It's just more that I'm like, hey, how did this happen? And I haven't heard about it. Well, that's all.
Yeah, and we've been looking, and we've been on the lookout for things like this.
Yeah,
more with us being doing this podcast and everything. And so I mean, it is kind of interesting that a lot of people didn't seem to take as much notice. I will say one thing, as I do think part of it is because I think Paizo did announce it a lot earlier than Wizards did when they decided they were going to raise their prices.
I'm never going to defend how Wizards of the Coast decides to do things, because sometimes it feels like they just do them, like the OGL thing, and then goes, when people notice, oh wait, what are you talking about? Hang on.
Oh no, that didn't happen.
You must be confused, and I feel like I'm getting gaslit, which is the
the
part that really upsets me. Right, that hypocrisy and gaslighting are bull.
I mean, that's the thing, is them being like, these aren't the droids you're looking for, is the problem. That
exactly.
I think.
But I think that there's also another thing that probably happens a little bit too, is that Paizo doesn't seem like the greedy corporate entity, whereas Hasbro does. So it feels like Paizo's in it to make a fun, good, long fantasy game that everybody loves to play. It's inclusive. You know, it's a competitor from D&D in every way and form in the fantasy genre. Whereas everybody looks at Hasbro, they look at Wizards, and they go and they literally just see corporate suits, just like, how could we squeeze more blood out of the stone?
Well,
you know,
yeah.
And so I think you know, there's a little bit of goodwill that's given to Paizo versus that's given to the Wizards
there are corporate
people.
overlords there that don't exist at most game companies. Sure,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Well, and like there is the thing where, I mean, Hasbro and Wizards have done a lot to illustrate just disingenuous intent to some degree on some of their most recently, which I think is another thing that probably bites them in the ass a little bit, where it's like,
no, it's an excellent point. They paint the target. It's like they wake up every day and they're like, the target isn't as lustrous as it used to be. We need to repaint the target on our chest.
Right.
So it feels like they're in that. Well, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah. Who we fighting with
reading
today?
our name. Yeah. Exactly.
Who we fighting with today is sometimes how it feels.
I'm not here to bring them more stuff. But you know, if you're interested in Paizo's price increase, read the blog post. It's on their website.
And I think they just recently released the remaster, didn't they?
They did
the Pathfinder,
and I did hear stuff about the remaster. I did see videos on my YouTube feed. So
you did or didn't?
I did, not a lot, but I did see some stuff on the remaster.
Yeah,
they seemed. I didn't watch any, but the thumbnails and the titles seemed vaguely positive. You can never tell with all the clickbaity titles out there on videos.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true. And I think people noticed it more with this, and I think we talked about it a little bit, is that they did take the Pathfinder Player Core and the Pathfinder GM Core, and they split it into two books that were, while less than the core book from the previous edition. I think the Player Core is $60, and then the GM Core was also. So it's like basically all of a sudden now you had a lot more money for the same level of product. And maybe it's worth it. You know, I mean, the current Pathfinder book, the one that I have, was an incredibly large number of pages, very much.
It's dense. I mean, it's not small print or anything, but the pages, like the first time I opened, I mean, not only did it look thick, and then you go in the page, it's like, this looks like it's, just to pick a number, 500 pages, and you get in there and it's like 800 pages, and I'm like, whatever it is, I'm making numbers up, so don't trust me on this. But there were more pages in the book than even the thickness suggested, and it was a beefy book.
It is a tome, that is for sure. It is. It is a large book.
So maybe splitting it winds up being a good thing, because they probably would have had to charge more. And it seems like they want to hold the line on the prices on core books.
Well, and I think that it's not bad, and maybe they see a temporary boost in revenue and all that stuff. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't picked up the books because I haven't been jonesing to read several thousand pages of core rulebook lately. But they have limited editions for both the GM Core and the Player Core special editions, and they both look pretty good. And so I was thinking, if I wanted to spend the $80,
well, Paizo, one thing I will say is, and everybody, Paizo does put out a really good product. Like, I have been pretty impressed. Like, I don't buy D&D books or clones that often, but the Paizo books always seem really nice when you pick them up.
Yeah. And the special editions look pretty good for $80 a piece. That does remind me, I'm still trying to figure out how I can buy the Candela Obscura special edition if we want to switch over to Critical Role, Darrington Press, and all that stuff. But I did have to laugh because I still went to their website because obviously my friendly local game store is going to be really evasive about whether or not they're selling this book, because maybe there's supposed to be like some press junket or some weird thing. But I keep on looking at the Critical Role shops in the US, and there's still no like order button. And I don't know if I don't know if that's like Like,
It's
when
the
you're
middle
like
of November, right? When they're coming out. Am I?
Yeah,
correct
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
It's supposed to be coming out like November 14th. So I'm within 2 weeks, and the one guy said, we should know within 2 weeks if we're going to get any of this stuff. And it's like, and I'm like, well,
you
how
have
is
to
this?
order it before the release date.
Well, you do. But
here's
how?
the secret: you have to order it before the release date.
It doesn't just show up if you didn't order it on the release date.
Right, exactly.
But this is the first time I've tried to order something before the release date and pay money for it, and I just simply can't. And it's very strange to me that
It seems odd.
And I feel like this is one of those weird things where maybe like a Taylor Swift concert where there's like a special fan club that I needed to be part of, and I'm not part of it. And maybe those people get to buy the deluxe edition of the Candle Obscura book. But I'm like, where do I go? What do I do?
Right. I have money. I have money. Can you take my money, please? No.
I feel like I'm Fry with the take my money, but you can't give it to anybody. It's like, shut up and take my money. And it's like, then there's no one behind the cash register.
That's deflating.
It kind of is.
I always have the Venkman from Ghostbusters 2 when I run into those situations where it's aren't you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt so you can get my money? Like, aren't you supposed to do those things? Like, that's what's supposed to happen. That's what happens when I run into like really poor customer service. Like, aren't you supposed to like
kiss my ass,
do things for me so I can give you my money? I'm confused as to what's going on in this situation.
No, this is a mugging, sir. We're
like, okay, so yeah, I like that would be more. I would understand that instead of just being like, no, we can't tell you if you can pre-order this thing that people want to buy.
And the funny thing is it feels like it's something just with your friendly local gaming store, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm probably not getting the Candela Obscura books. They look really nice. But I'm probably not. And so I haven't investigated. You know what I mean? Like I haven't gone to one of mine and asked.
Well, and so that's what I was trying to do is that go to the store and buy.
You're trying to do it the right way. You're supporting a local business, which I think is great.
Well, and everybody knows Critical Role is the largest, the largest actual play or whatever out there.
They're a big deal.
maybe they're not the largest, but I don't know who would be larger in terms of just fan base, revenue. Like, I mean, it's a money-making machine at this point, it feels like, because they just seem to be doing everything right. But they also have very good tier voice actor types that come in there.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, I mean, everything would help if you had trained professionals.
Well, right. I mean, yeah, like actors acting, like that's
well, and I think one of the cool things is yes, they are acting. Yes, they are actors and voice actors, but they also really seem to like playing the games.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
They're having fun doing it,
That's very true.
I think really comes across. Like
yeah,
I don't think you can watch that and not feel connected as somebody who plays these games. Like it's cool that these people like it too.
Yeah,
maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, it is. It is. Like I read a story about what was the name of that? There's the show Raised by Wolves. Does anybody remember that? It was on HBO.
It was like a Ridley Scott thing, wasn't it? Or...
Yeah, and it was really weird.
I think I watched about half of the first season. I thought it was really good, but yes, it was.
It was really weird. I really liked it. But yeah, it was pretty strange. But anyways, there is an African American actor on there who played Father.
Yeah.
And he like they were talking about the rap party for one of the seasons, and he's like, "No, I can't go. I have to go be on my role playing game." And he's on Glass Cannon Network. Like he's one of their main players on there. Yeah, but he like missed the rap party on this show that was a big deal because role playing is important to him, and he's like, "No, I have to go do this."
Awesome.
Which was pretty. It was pretty cool to hear because you don't hear about that.
You
don't hear about that type of thing that often, so that was kind of neat.
Well, and don't get me wrong, like critical role is definitely in that 1% club where there's for every one of them there's 1,000 actual plays or whatever that are unknown.
Right.
like
or
ours.
just or podcasts. Yeah, well, like ours, or podcasts that work really hard that people haven't heard of yet. But there are ones that, it just takes time sometimes. So
it does. You got to build up your rep.
If we want something to aspire to, the story that kicked off this whole discussion for us was that Critical Role played London's Wembley Arena last week to over 12,000 people. Not the stadium where they play soccer, which is right next door, but it is a very large arena in the UK. 12,000 people showed up to watch Critical Role
play,
which is amazing. Yeah, to play their game. And these are some small acts that have also played the same arena. You may have heard of them. I don't know. But Queen, ABBA, Beyonce, and Madonna have all played there. Like, that's kind of cool.
But was it 80s Madonna really cool. Or was it current Madonna?
You know what? I don't think it.
I don't think it matters. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. It's still Madonna. Like fair. Whether you like Madonna or not, or you only like certain of her, parts of her career, it's still freaking Madonna.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
She is still the queen of pop, I guess. Madonna. That's Madonna, right?
Yeah. I way to go, Critical Role.
That's
12,000 people, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, and of course, Critical Role is they continue to be on a roll, but I'm going to be here all week,
and so you continue to be on a roll as well. Good job.
Yep, I know that one hits right in the feels.
Feels good.
But they just recently, just a couple of days ago, actually said that they if you want to experience Daggerheart and help us with feedback, learn more and sign up here. And so there is actually a way that you could sign up to do some of their Daggerheart playtesting, which was interesting. So I did try to sign us up. It's only open to people that are 18 years or older. And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was that one of the questions seemed to imply that it was like the DM was much more of a participant in the game than like a standard DM from.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was interesting to me that question was just like, oh, do you plan on running the game? Do you plan on finding some other people? And then there was another way that it kind of teased that. And I was like, wait a minute. Is there something that you're saying the DM does here that they're like, is there some sort of emulator in here that kind of adds some randomness? The DM is actually playing a little bit more. We'll see. I mean, it's an open play test, or it's now the public play test. I believe they're calling it right now.
Open beta, if you're using video game terms.
Yeah, open beta. So they so people that are interested, of course, can go in and sign up on their because there's a link to the survey that you need to fill out on Twitter. Most people probably that watch Critical Role already know because they've shot in there or something like that.
Right. Just sprint it in there as quickly as possible.
I mean, because it's honestly like I feel that there are some creators right now, and I mean, other than that one weird 4th of July Halloween Kickstarter that just blew up, that Halloween kind of scary folk horror one that I showed you, Brent. Other than that,
yeah,
like I had never heard of that Avantis Press or whatever it was. But I feel like MCDM, they've got their game that they're about to throw down on Backer Kit or whatever it is, and I'm sure that's just going to be huge. And then of course Critical Role is going to be huge. You know what I'm saying? I think that there are these like.
I don't know. Like I've been surprised at how some of those underperform. Like they just don't do as well as I would have thought. Some of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how those come out.
I feel like based on how well Flea Mortals did and how much money went into that, even that D&D Shorts guys. 3 million plus Kickstarter or something like that. I'm really curious as to what MCDM and Daggerheart are going to look like. I think Daggerheart's probably just going to go direct sales. They're not going to do a Kickstarter or something.
I am going to throw this out there. I really do feel like MCM is making a mistake putting it out when they're putting it out.
Oh, that's possible. That
is there a release date?
Yeah, they're gonna go. It's gonna go live on. I think yesterday it said 36 days. It was gonna go live on Kickstarter. Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, so
That's
like
cool.
the end of November maybe, or beginning of December.
Well, like beginning of
So
December.
that's delivered sometime next summer.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Is like it's weird to me that they decided to like put it out right before Christmas when people are spending money on gifts on something that's not going to show up until well after Christmas.
Sure.
Unless there's a PDF or something.
Even then, like for gift giving season, like that's going to be, I don't know. It seems weird to me. It seems like they made an interesting choice on when they wanted to release it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, because it's not even going to go like the Kickstarter is probably going to be 30 days at least, and so that means that it's going to put their Kickstarter out to close after in January. It just seems like a weird time.
You know what? Good games doesn't matter when they're released. I don't believe that, but I think
I was going to say. I think the economy dictates otherwise.
That's a bold strategy there, Cotton. We'll see how it works out.
Well, we'll see. I mean, obviously,
like January is a bad time to put out products because everybody's still paying off.
Nobody has money.
Nobody's got money.
The money that they paid for in December. So, like those 2 months, in my opinion, should be like, no, the game's ready to put up, but we're gonna wait.
Maybe. But I mean, if anybody wants to get me an early Christmas gift, the Invisible Sun black box is now back out on Kickstarter.
What is the price on that? I did see the announcement that
$250 something, I think.
Ooh.
Well, there's 2 levels, right? Because
okay.
there's 3 levels, I should say. I think, and then there's some add-ons. So you can basically get the Wellspring edition, which is a new content that they created just for this Kickstarter if they reach certain stretch goals. So they reached those stretch goals, and so they put out a new physical and digital copy of that. And I think that's like $45 to get that if you've already got the Invisible Sun content. Then there's the digital edition, which I think is like $100 and some odd, and that's all the digital PDFs. And there's a lot. Like the Invisible Sun,
it's a big game.
It's a big game, like thousands of pages that you have to get through. But the concept is really interesting, and it's got a very neat, surreal like style that it brings to the whole fantasy thing, you know, and it kind of uses that same concept, you know, like, oh, everyone's kind of asleep, but now you're awake kind of thing, because there's the Invisible Sun. But it's I mean, I'm obviously oversimplifying it, but then there's the actual physical copy of the black box, which you get like a little cool hand.
It is a ginormous black cube, right?
It's hefty, is my understanding.
I'll make a deal with you. I'll get you that for Christmas if Degenesis has their collector's boxes up again to buy, and we can just exchange.
We can exchange.
Exchange debt.
That's how you make sure that you get good gifts, boys and girls.
It is not against the feeling of the season,
and our non-binary friends too.
I mean, I don't know. I think I might be losing in that particular exchange.
I think they're comparable.
Wow, it's 30 pounds. Holy cow! I'm looking at Monty Cook's website right now.
Yeah, no, it's pretty. I mean, it's really interesting. Like, if you look at the art for it, everything about it is very, very neat. Like,
there's some cool stuff. Yeah, I'm seeing some cool stuff.
The weird part about it is that, like, I remember reading about this back a while ago, because I didn't have any kid worries or anything like that, and it was such a, and I do like a lot of Monty Cook stuff, but Monty Cook, like, playing a Monty Cook game is always more aspirational for me. Because every time I'm like, oh, let's go play some Tolus, everyone's like, maybe. Or let's.
Well, that's because none of us have ever played it. It isn't that none of us have ever not wanted to play it. It's
it's just like, but it's just one of those things. And I was like, well, because I told my wife, I was like, well, maybe I'll get this black box. It would look really good on my bookshelf back here after I get some.
That's not a selling point to your partner.
And I was like, well, maybe we could play it. And she's just like, well, who are you going to play it with? And I was like, well, I got some people online I can play it with. Well, do you need the physical box then? I was like,
damn. Did you not hear the part where I said it would look really good on the shelf?
I mean, you have to look at. There's just so many cards, boards. There's even this like cool hand that's like there. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in here.
Yeah,
and
no,
obviously
that's a lot.
You're like, you foiled my plan. That's what you were like.
And she just logicked me out of not spending money, which, I mean, makes sense. But it's like I said, it's more aspirational for me because I think of the dedicated Monty Cook games. You know, Invisible Sun is one of them. Tolus was another one that I just was like, I want to play this. I want to play this game, and I just can't seem to get the excitement from other people to play it, which is fine.
Cypher, I mean, Numenera. I always wanted to play in a game of that. I don't know if I ever want to try and run one again, but
yeah.
But it always seems like it would be fun to play.
Yeah, it seems like it would, but I just, for whatever reason, I can't seem to. It just never seems to coalesce. So, like I said, it's more aspirational for me.
Notice how he's ignoring the fact that I just said I would play. He's just,
yeah,
it would be. Moving on.
No, we could, if you want to play Numenera, we can play Numenera. I haven't read it, but
well, I think it should be on our list probably.
It should, more because you want to play through the Cypher system.
Well, no, more because that's what we do is we play games.
What?
Oh my god, what are you talking about?
No, I think if you really want to, like, Numenera is one of those. What would I say about Numenera? I'd play Numenera.
It's sci fantasy. It's straight up like sci fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think is there a new edition of that came out recently? I see a lot of emails about the Cypher system.
There is a second. Well, the Cypher system. So the Cypher system is different than Numenera because the Cypher system is their kind of one of their generic.
That's their game engine.
Yeah, that's their generic game engine. Whereas Numenera was the first game that used the Cypher system. So,
and it's like, and now you have, because I'm seeing Numenera, Discovery, and Destiny, and then there's an original core book legacy content that you can actually download for free, which is kind of cool. But now you can spend $130 to get the Numenera slipcase set with Discovery and Destiny and PDF.
Yeah, they split they're one of the they split their books into two as well.
Yeah, well, that's smart. And you know what? I think as long as you're putting enough artwork and good looking stuff in there to make it work.
Yeah, and the Cypher system, I mean, Monty Cook puts out quality stuff, so the art is pretty cool in that too.
Yeah. Well, but needless to say, I wasn't trying to ignore you, Brent. I just was like, because the other thing that's about Monty Cook games is I always feel like I have to read a lot.
Well, yeah, they're one of those.
Feels like it.
They're a trad. I mean, they're a trad role playing game. They're like a D&D style. Like, you need, if you're going to run a game, you need to
really get into it.
You need to, you know.
Yeah, you need to get into it.
Yeah, you need to do your stuff. You need to be on top of things.
On the ball, man. On the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I think if you know, we're going to start playing some of these other games, you know, we gotta try them out. And I think I'd probably just run one of their adventures, whatever they have in there for you guys. We could try.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's always good for one shots.
Yeah, coming up with a bunch of your own original one shots, while fun, and I have had some fun making some one shots. I feel like there's some tightness in editing that I don't have, where like our one shot monster of the week game is 2 sessions because, you know, one shot is like 4 hours, I think, typically, and that's hard for us to do.
We're only doing 2 hours, so I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. I just have a problem. I have a problem sitting down and like being creative enough to write my own stuff these days.
I think it's a lot of fun. Honestly, I've been having a lot of fun in writing all of it, you know, and I'm enjoying what we're doing for our Wednesday game. Even though it's a little bit of a weird Wednesday game, it's kind of gotten strange with the whole.
It's usually fine. It's usually fine. We were just all, I don't know. I'm working like 10-hour days this week, and apparently it affected me more than I thought when I showed up to the game.
Brett was a different person, let's just say.
I was acting pretty weird, that's for sure.
Well, as a party, we already zigged when we were supposed to zag, and then we're like, okay, we'll do this too. Like we're taking on extra stuff that is probably not part of the main plot.
Brent was letting some of those intrusive thoughts that he usually keeps under wraps win.
Oh no, intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh geez. So so I think that's all I have to say about random updates and all of those things. Did you guys have anything else, or did you guys want to tackle some of those burning questions that we had kind of seen floating around on Reddit?
We can talk about some of those questions. I think some of those questions would be good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think some were neat.
We can probably do a couple of them.
So how do you think we should do this? Maybe what I should do is I should kind of set the premise, and then we should just kind of tackle each of the responses that people have.
Well, I think we should respond first. We should come up with our own, like what we think, and then kind of see what other people have to say.
Okay,
that's what
That's fine. I think and probably what will happen is we'll probably share some of the things that people already do. But the first question is that if you're the game master, how do you warm up your table before a session? And this is always an interesting question because it's like, well, how do you get ready to get gaming? And some people really struggle with that. I know that in one of my gaming groups, like there's like this bullshittery that happens prior to the game, and if we're not careful, the bullshittery just kind of keeps going longer and longer because we're such good friends and we don't talk that often. There's so much that you can fill in that space, and all of a sudden you set aside 3 hours for a game, and all of a sudden now you have 45 minutes to progress
15 minutes,
any plot points, and you're like, oh, whoops. So what do you guys do to warm up your table before, or what do you guys think is successful from what you've seen before a session to kind of get in the mood?
One thing that I liked in a game that I played was Over the Edge 3 has the players roll a dice for kind of a floating luck dice that everybody uses. Do you remember that in the game? At the beginning, I would have you and the other player just roll a dice, and if you rolled doubles, you got something out of it.
Oh,
I think having something that you have them do at the beginning of the game kind of helps kind of focus the mindset. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I think is really important is, like, as the GM, if you're the guy running the game, you can't be the guy that keeps talking or throwing things into the conversation, because you're the leader of the conversation. So if you keep doing it, me as a player, it's really easy for me to say, oh, I don't think the GM really wants to run the game tonight, so we'll just keep bullshitting. So it's important to just kind of, I think some of that bullshitting at the beginning is really important, but you kind of have to know when to say, okay, guys, are we ready? Or some sort of statement like that.
Yeah, I agree. Jeff, what do you think?
I think you have to allow some time for some conversation, especially in person. Not everybody sees everybody all the time. Not everybody gets to talk all the time. And you don't know what everybody's mind state is. There are times where, like, when we used to play games on Monday night, Brent, pre-pandemic, where I would literally work late and I would have to race across town to get there. And I've had zero decompression other than the driving time. And I need some time where it's not like immediately focus on this task.
Yep.
You know, and there's other times where it's like, hey, I got there a little early and we hung out and we talked, and then I was ready to go, like, at the time we were going to start. And everybody's going to be a little different each session. So I think having some time set aside, maybe move your start time up 10 or 15 minutes to account for some of that.
That's what I was going to say, is maybe start a little earlier than
if you could come up, like, if you could, I don't know, do stuff like we used to do, like at work, where you have, I'm gonna say a word and it's gonna trigger Brent, but that's okay. You have an icebreaker.
God damn it.
But it doesn't have to be a scripted thing. It could just be a topic, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I
don't know. Have something.
That's
just
fair.
To let people laugh, have fun, be loud, and then hey, so where did we leave off last week? You know what I mean? Like, where people know.
That's a good one.
Setting the expectations actually is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. Now,
that was
obviously I can't say that I'm perfect at this, but I have two things that I like to do. First is I do like to have the bullshit for just a few moments, because obviously I know that with our time difference, you guys tend to be coming home you know, getting back right away after work and maybe not had a chance to fully digest food, you know. So it's like trying to give you a few moments to like settle in and all that. And we're not deep role players, so I'm not trying to let you get like fall into your character's skin or anything weird like that. But it is nice to catch up with people, even if it's, you know, you're only talking with them once a week and all that. And I agree that like a few minutes of BSing at the beginning is always nice, catching up. What did you guys catch this episode of whatever? And just so that it doesn't kind of rear its ugly head later, because there are sessions that I've had where like, you know, we didn't really do anything. And then all of a sudden, like during the session, we were just tangent after tangent, can't stay on topic worth of shit. And we just weren't ready to move on past it or something like that. And the other thing I like to do is I do like to have the summary, you know, kind of like remind people what happened last time. Sometimes I'm better at asking questions than others. But with our sessions being only about 2 hours per week, there's not a ton that happens each week, which is kind of tricky. But at the same time, I think it's always nice just to kind of recap. And I think that demarcates, it's a good line of demarcation between like BSing and playing and all that stuff. Those are my two favorites. And so what I would suggest is if anybody is hearing this and they're saying, okay, well, what is their favorite way to warm up their table and get people ready? You know, leave it in the comments, put it in the thingy down below. Let us know what you think. Do you let your table bullshit? Do you play with random strangers? Like some people actually, you know, have online random looking for groups. You know, how do you get, you know, how do you warm up those tables where you don't know them? You just have literally signed up on like a message board to play a game with some random fucking people. And, you know, it's going to be very different than a group of friends.
You make it sound so fun though.
You say, hey, noobs, and then you teabag them.
Well, so it was really weird. Where I'm living now, I did find a random group on Reddit, and we started playing at one of the guys' houses. And obviously, I came in looking as a player, and then fucking had to start running games, which was irritating as shit. You know, I always hate it because everyone shows up and they're like, "Well, we all kind of wanted to play."
Yep.
And you know, when you have 5 players and 0 DMs, you run into the age-old problem: is who's the person that's going to step up? And I stepped up.
Who's
but
got the most experience?
But
no, that's never what. No, it's the person that caves first.
That's really what it is. It's never
the person that says,
"Okay,
I'll run the game." That's how that works. It's not ever. It's not ever. Okay, who would be the best to run the game? Yeah, that's not how it works.
No, that's actually really a very, very, very real truth about it. Because we looked at each other and then sheepishly I said, well, if nobody else wants to run it, well, I guess I'll run it, you know, very quietly. And so then we started playing some games. But the reward is then there was snack time at the beginning. And one of the guys really liked cheese. So I got to try all these really expensive and fancy cheeses every week on Sundays. It was very nice.
Really?
Yeah, I would just like show up and there would be like a cheese charcuterie board set out, and I was like, well, I'm glad I started.
Well, don't mind me.
Yeah.
Well, that's the least they could do if they conned you into running the game.
Well, there is that.
Hey. I'm going to put this out there. I mean, in terms of just like how you help your DM, like there's usually like as a DM, GM keeper or whatever, there's usually a lot of onus on you being the leader of the group, as you said, to kind of get it all together. Usually you're there for the scheduling, finding players, managing behind the scene expectations and all that stuff. And when you do it in person, if it's at your house, which I don't know what it is, but it always feels like DMs tend to have people over to their house for some reason. You know, and you're running the game, you might be providing snacks or something like that. So there's a lot of work that goes into being a DM. And so
there is. Be nice to your GM. Feed the GM when you can.
Yes, please. I mean, if anybody wants to set up a charcuterie board, I might be willing to travel.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that would be a little hard in given our current circumstances.
Yeah, just make sure it's there when I get up there. I'll be there next week. No rotten meat, please. But yeah, so according to the interwebs, so that the question was put out by Latent Arcana Games, who must be that sounds like an actual legitimate person trying to do games. But then, of course, the responses tended to be, yeah, bullshitting. Ask players what happened last time. This one was interesting. I put together a solid theme song for every campaign, like a TV show. And then when I feel like it's time to start the session. So this is, I'm not sure what actually causes the curtain to drop, but I just break off mid-sentence and say anyways and hit play. As soon as the song ends, I launch into opening narration and everybody is ready to go. I wonder how long the song would be.
Not very long.
Probably not very long, but
no.
But I think that's kind of a good idea. I think I probably wouldn't just drop in the middle of a sentence. I would probably be like, all right, the music's starting, and then kind of go from there.
But some of us, you know, where you've watched like television shows and movies and stuff with the theme song or entrance music, like we're kind of trained, right? That's something's happening, you know, something's gonna come on here, so I need to start paying attention now.
What's curious to me is that, like, if it was a long song, like what if American Pie was the
sure
was the song?
How about the album version of Stairway to Heaven?
We're going to be playing In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida is going to be our entrance song.
Is this the full cut of that, like 23 minutes or something?
It's 20. I think it's exactly 23 minutes. I think
it's a long with a very long drum solo.
Yes.
There's
surprisingly long.
There's
no, that kind of gets back to what I was saying. If your GM says the In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida is going to be the theme song for our campaign, and then turns it on and then waits for it to finish before he starts, I don't think he wants to play the game very much.
Yeah, but the baller move, honestly, is he's like, he puts that on, he gets up, he goes to the can, does his business, and comes out right at the end of the song and acts like nothing happened, nothing untoward.
Enjoy the music,
and
then comes back in. I don't know. I think, like I said, I think as long as the GM is taking control of the situation and being like, okay, we're playing now. With however he does that, I think that's going to take you strides. Whether like you stand up, I know sometimes I've had games where I would stand up and I would GM standing up for part of the game.
Sure.
And so when you'd stand up, like the instinct of most tables is to like quiet down, like during meetings and stuff like that. So like that would be a good way too, I think. Get your conductor's wand.
Just kind of basically make yourself present, you know, and all that stuff. That's kind of it could be a really interesting way to do it. Of course, it depends on your table. You could have the table being like, "What's up? Get me some from the kitchen."
Yeah,
you getting some coffee? Grab me some too.
Well, it's funny. I know I scoffed at the icebreaker thing, but like the same stuff that you do to pull a meeting in line is pretty much the same stuff that I would do to pull a gaming table in line.
So. Smack your
slap, yes. Verbal warnings and then kicking them out of my house. Yes, if they don't, straighten up and fly right.
No, but I think it comes back to like setting expectations. Like we've all agreed that we're setting aside 3 hours to play this game, right? Or 4 hours or 1 hour or whatever it is, and we would like to actually play that long, not that, you know, things don't come up and, you know, there are not going to be some exceptions, but if every week is an exception, it's not an exception anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've just non-verbally changed the expectations, right? You've allowed somebody to run over the rules, and
you've changed the agreement.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a social contract, right?
This one. So I think,
I really like that theme song thing, but I would be horrible at finding one.
Well, I think as a group, you might agree on what the theme song is, and I feel like
it's not just the A-Team theme all the time.
As someone who has often listened to music that people describe as not human music, yeah, it's kind of hard.
I think there's a bit of Beck in there.
For me, no.
So each person has to play their individual themes.
Oh,
got a devil's haircut.
Everybody pick one.
It's something like that, and that, of course, is what gets our channel banned. So
I don't think it was long enough. It has to be more than 30 seconds, I think.
I don't know. I don't even know if you could tell that I was singing. But this next one is I love the ritual questions from Wanderhome that asked prior to the beginning of session. The game is about traveling group in a world of small forgotten gods. Lots of focus on found, family, and healing. Sounds like a very cozy game, but it's what sort of place did we just travel from? Is there somewhere we hope to go? Do we feel our journey has been long, and silently in our heads, where is my home? So I wonder if there are questions that, kind of have that, preparatory thing, kind of like the icebreaker that you're talking about, Jeff, but they're like game specific questions.
Yeah.
And so
get in the mindset, right?
Yeah. Because I think that I don't feel like these would fit with every game that I play, but I feel like they're a good style of question to ask, like your character, just to reinforce, like, what did we just do? Where do we plan on going? How do we plan on getting there? Like, how do we plan on accomplishing this goal? Like, just kind of get you in the thought process of like how you plan on approaching the next session. And with our 2-hour sessions, it makes it a lot easier to know.
And the thing to remember is in any given social situation, there's always going to be a conversational pause. Like there's always going to be, the table will at some point go quiet, and it's usually every few minutes. So like I think I read this once, it's like every 5 minutes most groups will pause, and that's when you can look for those natural, if you get good at it and you pay attention, you can look for those natural pauses, and that's when you can start your game too.
Yeah. And I think, well, maybe, yeah, I think that's pretty easy to swing back into it. And that's what, in terms of like, I think our group does a pretty good job of that, is that, we usually only do about 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most, 30 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, depending if people are late.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's really tricky, is that if people are late to the game,
yeah,
that's hard.
Well, it blows things, right?
It does. Because we only do 2 hours of game night on Wednesdays, and so if you're half an hour late, that could be tricky. But I still think we get a lot accomplished in a small amount of time, typically.
If people aren't being insane.
Insane. If it's not insane in the membrane, it doesn't count.
I just mean where you're just saying things that, when you're being a peanut gallery, it's not always productive.
Oh, this is kind of neat. And then there's apparently a collection of RPG campfire questions. It's a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think I've seen. I think I've seen that before.
Really, that's neat.
Yeah, I feel like if I type this into something, I'm probably going to get like some weird BDSM version of it. Like RPG campfire questions for friends.
I think you worry about that a lot.
Well,
should we worry about you?
No, not yet. I hope. But there.
No, what are you talking about? Absolutely not.
So, do you guys want to move on to that second topic before we wrap out today?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So the second one is, what's one thing that would make GMing less effort? And this was by Brilliant Cash 6327. They say, what's one thing a publisher could do, your players could do, or anyone could do to lower the amount of effort it is to GM any game? This is actually a really interesting question to me, because like, there's the idea of low prep GMing, and that's a very common goal, because as a GM, there's been many people, myself included, that have just prepped to the gills only to have used none of that prep material, and then basically have to throw it all in the bin because the players did something I couldn't account for. So with that in mind, what do you guys think? What is one thing a publisher could do, players could do, or anyone could do to lower the amount of effort it is to GM any game, any system, anything?
That's a hard one for me, because I think that even those games that say that they're low, like don't prep these games, like I rag on Powered by the Apocalypse a lot. because it's like, don't you dare prep for this game. And I think all of your games are better if you just prep a little. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to think of anything a publisher could do to make it easier, because I feel like prep time is something that comes with the territory. Oh wait, I did think of one. That I really like when games do it. Anytime that they have just random stats for things that like anybody might run into is always helpful. Like games that are like, here are the stats for guard number 3 or a random city guard. Like that's really helpful, because then I don't have to stat out every single goddamn NPC in the game.
Oh, that's true.
Which is really that's like half the time of like I have to do main villains and stuff anyways, so making it so I have to do like guard number 4 and guard number 5 is really difficult for me. I like it when games do that.
That's fair. I mean, and I think that falls into that broader category of game organization. And I think there are some games that get organization and they understand how people play games and they make it very easy for the users of the game to navigate. And then there are some games that are absolute ass at it. I'm sure you can even think of some yourselves.
100%.
Give it enough time. But there are definitely
a good index is important too.
Well, a good index is important, but just the flow of the book. Like if it looks like it was written by flying monkeys, then that can be itself a trouble in how the game goes. And as the DM, especially if you're not used to playing the game, you have a lot of page turning because the stuff that you need is not in the section you need. And I mean, even games like Pathfinder have some moments like that where you start to get into crafting and the information you need is on multiple sections to kind of like synthesize how it all works and kind of get the bigger picture. I found myself flipping between a few different sections to understand exactly how those types of things played out. And I know that Pathfinder is not the only one, but I don't
mind flipping so much as I hate Shadowrun first edition was really bad at referential pages. Like they would be like, this rule is here, and then you would see another rule that was like, this is an exception, see page 35 or whatever. Like that's really annoying. But those are publishing problems. Those aren't, an index I think is important where you can look things up just mechanically. Everything organized in the book is good. Sample NPCs I think are good. I think those are 3 like just straight publishing things that good publishers do and some games don't.
Okay. And what about you, Jeff?
I like when there's more than just the rules, like for the GM, like when there's some examples, some how-tos and for instance type things. I realize that's sort of vague and gets into a little bit of fluff, but especially one of the things that is hard sometimes when you're reading the GM parts of role-playing books is some of them assume a certain level of knowledge that you may have. You might have more, but oftentimes I find you have less. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's hard for some people to get into running games is because they don't, it doesn't have to be total hand holding, but a little bit. Examples of things that are good, like when you're running games, like be flexible. If the rule doesn't matter in this case, then why are you searching for it for 24 minutes? Like if it isn't like material to to moving the story along, you're the GM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bypass it, look it up later.
Bypass it, look it up later. Just like some but I like it when books have some stuff like that, and have I seen a perfect book? No. I agree with you on the flow thing. Like if I am looking to answer a specific question and I'm looking in the table of contents or the index and I expect it to be in this chapter and it's not in that chapter, it is frustrating because then essentially I'm flipping literally every page, scanning as fast as I can to try to hone in on one word. You know what I mean? Like it's it's rough.
I will agree with Jeff. Like, examples of play, I think, are really important. I think seeing how the game plays and what kind of is expected is important, just because that leaves less room for interpretation, and you can kind of see how it flows. It was the rule of play. It was the example of play that made me realize I hate the rules in the Fading Suns game that we talked about earlier today.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
The fail to fail harder or something like that. What was the
Fading Suns mechanic that I really didn't like was you roll a dice and you generate a thing called victory points, and then you have to kind of gamble victory points to see if you're successful, but it's totally blind. So it's like, I'm going to spend 5 victory points to do this thing. And like, I basically am hiding that. Like, you're basically bidding on it. And I can say, nope, it was 6. Like, it's just really like, you're not supposed to tell them what the victory point number is. So you get in this weird, like, resource expenditure. It becomes very combative because you can't tell, because sometimes you can't tell if the GM's like just making it impossible for you or not. Like, it was really difficult for me, and it was an added like abstraction that was really weird. I was not fond of the mechanics in that game. And
needless to say, it is a Dune-esque setting, if I remember correctly. So it was something that was on my radar, but then kind of cooled that fire when you said the mechanics weren't very fun.
Yeah, they weren't. The older versions of the game are fun though. So I guess if I was going to run a Fading Suns game, I would use one of the older, the Holistic. I think Holistic was the ones that did the 3rd edition, and that's probably the rules I would use. Holistic Designs version.
Was there something you thought that publishers could do to help GMs, Mike?
Me? Oh, geez. Well, I think it depends on a few things. As a guy who runs a lot of games recently, for some reason, the idea that something is trying to help it make my life easier, I think it's if you're looking at like, well, what could a publisher do? If I'm a D&D publisher or something like that, where a built-in balance is kind of necessary for the game, then I think you need the tools and resources at your fingertips to be able to play with that balance accurately. And I think D&D has done a terrible job of being able to balance it in terms of like combat. And combat is a very big part of how a D&D story is told. Like, I go into the dungeon, I fight shit, I get treasure, I save the princess. But I fight shit is a very big part of every D&D story that they do. And it may not necessarily be an overt combat, but it's conflict through various means. And I think all RPGs have conflicts, which I think they should. Conflict is interesting. But D&D is really bad about it when it comes to fighting monsters. Like zombies, very easy way to kill a low-level party because they can't strike the killing blow. Their shades, you can't do damage to it unless you have magical or proper material on the sword you have. And if you didn't know, and like if that's just a random encounter, like D&D kind of programs you to fight everything. Smart parties don't fight everything, but I think there's a very real, I fight everything because I'm supposed to be a superhero fantasy character.
Yeah, there's a power fantasy, sure.
Yeah.
And so I think in those games, if they just were more realistic with how they set up encounters and at least made it so the DM could properly coalesce encounters kind of on the fly, that would be a lot better. But I think from like other games that don't necessarily rely on balance is that, kind of the tips and tricks, like how do you do this? And so to your point, Jeff, the how to, I enjoy Monster of the Week because of, it's a simple enough framework to work within. And I think we had a fun enough time on Monday, but it doesn't, it doesn't get bogged down in the balance component of it. Like, you're not like Monster of the Week didn't advertise itself as each of these hunter classes is perfectly balanced. And I think that's very important.
Oh, they're not.
And so there are definitely classes that when you get into combat, this is a combat monster. There are classes that get into combat and you go, why the fuck am I here? So the fact that it's not so tuned as D&D is trying to present itself as means that it creates much more interesting games because you don't end up with the balanced part.
Well, yeah. Well, and I think that's the core thing that we always kind of reference. A kind of a succinct way to put the core thing that we always reference in a D&D game. All the characters should be good at combat, because at some point somebody's going to be bored if they're not, basically, because it's going to happen. Where in a narrative game, sometimes being good at combat means you're going to be bored doing the rest of the game. You know, because that's not what the game is
or there
about.
may not be any combat at all in this particular adventure.
Yeah,
scenario.
exactly. So yeah, you're just, unless your character is interesting in another way, which in order to balance some narrative games, like you can't be, you know, you're going to be kind of bored in those narrative situations.
And that's fine. It's just interesting because I think that's, if I was to say, like, because I feel like that's a very D&D question, because D&D is a lot of work for the GM to prep. You know,
It is.
Just even if it's prepping tables and prepping encounters and hex crawl, like there's a, you know, and that probably expands out to other like OSR type games that involve that. But I feel like there are some, like Powered by the Apocalypse, you know, as a GM, you're like, oh, well, I can kind of roll in here and play the game just to see how it plays. And you do prepare somewhat, because like before I played Monsters of the Week for the first time, my brain kind of just overthought everything. But really, I figured out that I should focus on what tools are in the toolkit. So as part of the mystery, like, who's part of the mystery? What are the important parts about the monster? What are my keeper moves? You know, what mechanics can I use and leverage at certain points? And I'm still not very good at it, because obviously as a new keeper, I still have a lot to learn. But I think that by learning those things, that'll make it a much more effective Monster of the Week game. Whereas in D&D, I have to somehow master everything. you know, thousands upon thousands of entries of
and
data.
you have to roll you have to roll NPCs, and you have to roll monsters, and you know, you have to develop the plot, and then you have to respond to whatever insane thing that your players do that totally derails them from going to wherever you wanted them to go.
Well, and it's interesting too, because in D&D, that I don't think that there's really a good place that tells you how to run NPCs. You know, like in Monster of the Week, what's interesting is they give you, like, every NPC should have a type. Like, this NPC is a victim. This NPC is a detective. This NPC is so they tell you, like, kind of the NPC's main motivation, so that at the very least, that's how you run the NPC. And all the window dressing, like their appearance and everything like that. Very rarely do you remember what NPCs look like unless they have something like really distinct about them, you know, because you just let them fill in the blanks. Like I say, oh, you see a police officer, you guys are going to immediately put them in like a police cap, you know, maybe a bulletproof vest, a, you know, sidearm. I'm not going to go, oh, she has a Glock 16. You know, you can tell it's well maintained because there's oil finish on the blah, 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 blah. You know, like,
nope. You're just going to say that's Officer Molly.
That's Officer Molly. And, you know, unless there's something I should tell you, like you see her sergeant stripes or something like that.
Sure.
But
she's
then
pointing a gun at you.
Yeah. She's pointing a gun at you. But how she behaves is more important, because how she reacts to you in the scene is going to be dictated by.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. That, here's Brent shitting on D&D again. And I think that's the thing, is like, in D&D they don't tell you that because they don't care. Like, it's a game that's for combat. Like, sure, you can role play, but this game is about going in a dungeon or getting into fights, you know. Killing goblin bakers.
And I think that there are plenty of people that have put out content to try to fill those gaps, to make NPCs more interesting. But it was just so simple in a way that how Monsters of the Week did it. I keep on saying Monsters of the Week when I mean to say Monster of the Week. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's just like, these motherfuckers. There's no S in that goddamn title.
Monsters, whatever.
Monster of the Week. It's a rough week, okay? There's monsters, okay?
There's many.
But I think that, you know, it's an interesting conundrum, because I think that, you know, a lot of people turn to combat because they just don't know how that NPC interaction can go.
It's a skilled GM will start doing that naturally, but you're right, D&D doesn't encourage it in the base book.
Yeah, they don't tell you the NPC motivations usually,
right?
So,
or tell you, it doesn't tell you your NPCs should have motivations. Like, there should be something other than them just standing there like a merchant in a video game. Welcome to my shop. What would you like to buy? Ooh. Khajiit has wares if you have coin. Is that what they say?
Yeah. From Skyrim.
Skyrim,
yeah. Oh gosh. Well, needless to say, we've surpassed our hour, so I think we can wrap up there. But we appreciate everybody that's taken the time to listen to any part of this, whether it be the first half, the last half, first 15 minutes,
the juicy middle,
the juicy middle, the parts where Brent likes to talk about his love affair with Games Workshop and how he buys their books in secret.
You mean Wizards of the Coast?
I mean, yes, Wizards of the Coast. That's what I meant.
I don't admit to my guiltily buying Games Workshop stuff.
You don't admit to that? You just do it?
Just do it.
He just does it. He's go over to his house. It's like, did you buy a new army?
Exactly. This seems like a lot more plastic than you had last week. I told everybody that I bought a D&D book. I had a moment where I was morally conflicted, where I was like, should I
won't
do
even
this?
buy their used books.
Yeah, I was like, should I really do this? I was like, oh, I'll do it, but I'll just admit to it to everybody. So that'll be my penance for buying a Wizards of the Coast book.
It's funny.
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, then, continue to buy those D&D books if you want. We won't judge you too much. Obviously, I mean, I might still buy the Planescape book just because I'm a fanboy.
I might buy the Planescape book as a present for someone. So, not you. Well, especially not if you're gonna. Well, if you want it, like, don't buy it yourself. Maybe you'll get it for Christmas.
Maybe
now,
you won't.
Now I'm conflicted. I'll have a very interesting Christmas. But needless to say, I think we could probably tell people how to get a hold of us if they want to reach us.
Yeah, if you want to find us on social media, you can look on Threads, X, Facebook, and YouTube at Rollwise. And you can get us by email at rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you for joining us. And really, very much thank you for 25 subscribers. That was a personal goal for us. So thank you for that. And always roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah.